Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, this is correct. Please accept our humble obeisances. All glory to the Prabhupada. According to our schedule, the marriage schedule, morning, okay, good. Thank you. I didn't see it.
Hare Krishna. Yeah,
I see you on.
the Prabhupada's chanting is continuing on.
Are you on the regular name? Okay.
There.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class, which is from Canto 2, Chapter 6. And this morning we're doing texts 43, 44, and 45. We're very fortunate to have His Grace Vishnugada Prabhu to give a class this morning. Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyo pitṭhāṇāṁ pāvanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Welcome, everybody.
Okay.
We'll chant Jaya Radha Madhava. And if you'd like to, it'd be great if people could unmute yourselves so we can have a call and response, if you can.
Okay.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana.
Jamunatira Vanachari
Yamunatira Vanachari.
Jamunatira Vanachari
Yamunatira Vanachari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari.
Yashodarandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajak Acharya Ashtotara Shata Shishima's Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Jai.
ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai.
Jai.
प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गोविंद की जय।
Jai.
श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय।
Jai.
वृंदावन धाम की जय।
Jai.
नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय।
Jai.
गंगा माई की जय।
Jai.
जमुना माई की जय।
Jai.
तुलसी देवी की जय।
Jai.
भक्ति देवी की जय।
Jai.
क्रमवेता भक्तवृंद की जय।
Jai.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Shamiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 6th Chapter, entitled Purusa Sukta Confirmed. We have 3 verses. We'll just chant responsively the first verse, and then I'll just chant the rest, because it'll take a long time to chant all these verses responsively, I think. Ahaṁ bhavo yajña ime prajeśā dakṣādayo ye bhavad-ādayaś svarloka-pālāḥ khagaloka-pālā nṛloka-pālās talaloka-pālā. Ahaṁ bhavo yajña ime prajeśā dakṣādayo ye bhavad-ādayaś svarloka-pālāḥ, khagaloka-pālā, nṛloka-pālās, talaloka-pālā, ahaṁ bhavo yajña ime prajeśā, dakṣādayo ye bhavad-ādayaś, svarloka-pālāḥ, khagaloka-pālā, nṛloka-pālās, talaloka-pālā. Please stand.
ahaṁ bhavo yakṣa ime prajeśā dakṣādayo ye bhavad-ādayaś svarloka-pālāḥ khagaloka-pālā nṛloka-pālās talaloka-pālā. Hare Krishna.
ahaṁ bhavo yajña ime prajeśā dakṣādayo ye bhavad-ādayaś svarloka-pālāḥ khagaloka-pālā nṛloka-pālās talaloka-pālāḥ. Hare Krishna.
Aham bhavo yajna ime prajeśā dakṣādayo ye bhavad-ādayaś svarloka-pālāḥ khagaloka-pālā nṛloka-pālās talaloka-pālā. Hare Krishna.
अहं भवो यत्न इमे प्रजेशा दक्षादयो ये भवदादयश्च स्वर्लोकपालाः खगलोकपाला नृलोकपालास्तल्लोकपालाः. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. If anybody else would like to chant, otherwise we'll go on. Gandharva-vidyādhara-cāraṇeśā ye yakṣa-rakṣoraga-nāga-nāthāḥ ye ṛṣīṇām ṛṣabhāḥ daityendra-siddheśvara-dānavendrāḥ anye ye preta-piśāca-bhūta kūṣmāṇḍa-yādo-mṛga-pakṣy-adhīśāḥ kiñca loke bhagavan mahasvad ojaḥ-sahasvad balavat kshamāvat śrī-hrī-vibhūty-ātmavad adbhūtāraṇ tattvam param rūpavad asva-rūpam. Synonyms: ahaṁ, myself, Brahmaji. Bhava, Lord Shiva. Yajña, Lord Vishnu. Ime, all these. Prajaisha, the father of the living beings. Dakṣādayo, Dakṣa, Marichi, Manu.
For me, no lunch at all. For
And no rice.
Prabhu,
Yeah.
yeah.
Got it.
Okay. Wait, we went too far. We're still too far. Go up a little bit, please. Yeah. Dakṣādayo, Dakṣa, Marichi, Manu, etc. Ye, those. Bhavat, yourself. Ādayaś, and the bachelors. Sanat Kumar and his brothers. Svarloka-pālāḥ, the leaders of the heavenly planets. Khagaloka-pālā, the leaders of space travelers. nṛloka-pālāḥ, the leaders of mankind. Talaloka-pālā, the leaders of the lower planets. Gandharva, the residents of Gandharva-loka. Vidyādhara, the residents of the Vidyādhara planet. Cāraṇeśā, the leaders of the Charanas. Yea, as also others. Yakṣa, the leaders of the yakshas. Raksha, demons. Uraga, snakes. Naga-nāthāḥ, the leaders of Nagaloka, below the earth. Yea, others. Va, also. ṛṣīṇām, of the sages. ṛṣabhāḥ, the chief. pitÄṇāṁ, of the forefathers. Daityendra, leaders of the atheist. Siddheśvara, leaders of the Siddhaloka planets. Spacemen. Dānavendrāḥ, leaders of the non-Aryans. Anye, besides them. Cha, also. Je, those. Preta, dead bodies, piśāca, evil spirits, bhūta, jinn, kūṣmāṇḍa, a special type of evil spirit, jada, aquatics, mṛga, animals, pakṣy-adhīśāḥ, giant eagles, yat, anything, kiñca, and everything, loke, in the world, bhagavat, possessed of bhaga, or extraordinary power, mahasvad, of a special degree, ojaḥ-sahasvad, special mental and sensual dexterity, balavat, possessed of strength, kshamāvat, possessed of forgiveness, śrī, beauty, śrī, ashamed of impious acts, vibhūty, riches, ātmavad, possessed of intelligence, adbhuta, wonderful, arnam, rays, tattvam, specific truth, param, transcendental, rūpavat, as if the form of asva-rūpam, not the form of the Lord. Translation. I myself, Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, great generators of living beings like Dakṣa and Prajāpati, yourselves, Narad and the Kumaras, heavenly demigods like Indra and Candra, the leaders of the bhurloka planets, the leaders of the earthly planets, the leaders of the lower planets, the leaders of the gandharva planets, the leaders of the vidyādhara planets, the leaders of the charana-loka planets, the leaders of the yakṣas, rakṣas, and Uragas, the great sages, the great demons, the great atheists, and the great spacemen, as well as the dead bodies, evil spirits, satans, jinn, kūṣmāṇḍas, great aquatics, great beasts, and great birds, etc. In other words, anything and everything which is exceptionally possessed of power, opulence, mental and perceptual dexterity, strength, forgiveness, beauty, modesty, opulence, and breeding, whether in form or formless, may appear to be the specific truth and the form of the Lord, but actually they are not so. They are only a fragment of the transcendental potency of the Lord. Report. Those in the list given above, beginning from the name Brahmaji, the first living creature within the universe, down to Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, Narada, and other powerful demigods, men, supermen, sages, rishis, and other lower creatures of extraordinary strength and opulence, including the dead bodies, satans, evil spirits, jinn, aquatics, birds, and beasts, may appear to be the Supreme Lord, but factually, none of them is the Supreme Lord. Every one of them possesses only a fragment of the great potencies of the Supreme Lord. The less intelligent man is surprised to see the wonderful actions of material phenomena, as the Aborigines are fearful of a great thunderbolt, a great and gigantic banyan tree, or a great lofty mountain in the jungle. For such undeveloped human beings, merely the slight display of the Lord's potency is captivating. A still more advanced person is captivated by the powers of the demigods and goddesses. Therefore, those who are simply astonished by the powers of anything in the creation of the Lord, without any factual information of the Lord himself, are known as shaktas, or worshippers of the great powers. The modern scientist is also captivated by the wonderful actions and reactions of natural phenomena, and therefore is also a shakta. These lower grade persons gradually rise to become Soryas, worshippers of the sun god, or Ganapatyas, worshippers of the mass of people as Janata, Janardan, or Daridra Narayan, etc., in the form of Ganapati, and then rise to the platform of worshipping Lord Shiva in search for the ever-existing soul, and then to the stage of worshipping Lord Vishnu, the super soul, etc., without any information of Govinda, Lord Krishna, who is the original Lord Vishnu. In other words, in other ways, some are worshippers of race, nationality, birds, beasts, evil spirits, Satans, etc. The general worship of Shani Dev, the Lord of distressful condition, and Sitala Dev, the goddess of smallpox, is also common to the mass of people. And there are many foolish men who worship the mass of people or the poor class of men. So different persons, societies, and communities, etc., worship some of the potent manifestations of the Lord, wrongly accepting the powerful object as God. But in this verse, it is advised by Brahmaji that none of them is the Supreme Lord. They are only borrowed plumes from the original Almighty Lord Shri Krishna. When the Lord advises in Bhagavad Gita to worship him alone, it is to be understood that worshiping Lord Krishna includes worshiping all that is mentioned, because he, Lord Krishna, includes everyone. When the Lord is described as formless in the Vedic literatures, it is to be understood that all these forms mentioned above, within the experience of universal knowledge, are different exhibitions of the Lord's transcendental potencies only. And none of them are factually represents the transcendental form of the Lord. But when the Lord actually descends to the earth or anywhere else, anywhere in the universe, anywhere within the universe, the less intelligent class of men also mistake him to be one of them. And thus they imagine the transcendence to be formless or impersonal. Factually, the Lord is not formless, nor does he belong to any of the multi-forms experienced within the universal forms. One should try to know the truth about the Lord by following the instruction of Brahmaji. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Shayam Rupagadamahyam Dadati Shapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Before speaking, I'd like to ask the permission and blessings from all devotees, particularly those who are senior by age and or by advancement in Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna. So this is an amazing set of verses. This is spoken by Lord Brahma to his son Narad in the chapter of Purusha Sukta confirmed. And the first reaction I have to this verse is that, unlike what's thought of by most of those of scientific mind, Lord Brahma, who's the master, the prime demigod within the universe, the prime administrator, is describing that the universe is populated by all kinds of living entities. It's not a void, or that there's life only on the Earth planet and maybe one or two other obscure planets, but everywhere in the universe there's life. One of the verses in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita describes the soul as sarvagata, everywhere. It's everywhere. So here, Lord Brahma is describing all these places, all these personalities living throughout the universe. Summarily, in the universe, there's 7 downward planetary systems and 7 upward planetary systems, according to the Vedic version. Atal, Vital, Talatal, Mahatal, Rasatal, Patala, going down. That's Sutala, one of the downward planetary systems, is the planet of Bali Maharaj, where Vamanadeva is there. And then the upward planetary systems are Bhu, that's our planetary system, Bhuva, Svar, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka, the residence of Lord Brahma. And here we find there's other planets mentioned, like it says the Charanaloka planet and the Vidyādhara planet, which aren't mentioned specifically in that system of 4 planetary systems. You follow? So where do you think they might fit in? That's a question for you.
The Charanaloka and the Vidyādhara planets?
Yeah, well, I just mentioned. Go ahead.
They are heavenly planet, heavenly denizens, so they would be in the upper planets then. Yeah,
so just because there's Vidyādhara planets, that we call it Maharlok, Svargalok, that's the planetary system. But within the planetary systems, there's all varieties of planets in each planetary system. So just like this, we call this Earth planetary system, Bhulok planetary, but Earth is one planet within the Bhulok planetary system. Mm-hmm. So like that. Yeah. And so there's the universe, all over the universe, is teeming with life. And Lord Brahma, as part of his description of the universal form, is identifying all these different beings on the different planets, and particularly he's singling out, if you notice, the leaders. Sometimes it's called Pala, sometimes it's called Indra. Those words are in the Sanskrit are given to designate the leaders of the various kinds of planets or populations on those planets. So he's pointing those out because it's often the case that the leaders, they are leaders because they exhibit the most power. And he's describing that, just as Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, yad vibhuti mat sattvam srimad urjitam evava. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creatures in this universe spring but from a spark of my splendor. So Lord Krishna was saying that, explaining that to Arjuna, because Arjuna he asked them, can you tell me about your opulence? And then Sri Krishna then described in many verses varieties of his opulent manifestations. Of wielders of weapons, I am Ram. Of fish, I'm the shark. Of mountains, I am Meru. Of immovable objects, I'm the Himalayas. Of like this. And then he said that verse that I quoted, all know that all opulent, beautiful, glorious manifestations are just coming from a spark of my splendor. So the point being that, yes, there are many powerful, wonderful, manifestations, both personalities and places, beings, things, but none of them are equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Therefore, there's a name of Lord Krishna called Asamurdha. Asamurdha. Urdhva means above, and asam means as the same, but sama means the same. Asama, not the same, not equal to, or greater than him. Nobody's equal to or greater than Lord Krishna. And does it happen within the your experience or within the historical experience that's recorded in the Srimad Bhagavatam or world history that powerful beings or powerful manifestations are often mistaken to be the Supreme Lord? What do you think?
That happens quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah, people get mistaken. They get carried away. Can you give any examples of that occurring? I'm throwing this out for discussion. Examples of people who get or beings or manifestations that become mistaken as being the topmost deity. You know some. Come on.
Shiva is worshipped as God sometimes.
Yes.
Brahma is worshipped as God sometimes.
Yes.
And then there's some confusion in Christianity. Some people saying Jesus himself is God. That's also there.
Yes.
Even though he's supposed to be the Son of God, but some people say he is God. So all of those.
And sometimes, sometimes that identification of beings or manifestations can be explicit. In other words, a person may themselves claim to be God, or it may be something that their devotees or followers claim, even though that person doesn't claim. Or it may be the fact that the person may not verbally or identify themselves as God, or their followers may not identify themselves as God, but by all intents and purposes, they act as though they're the supreme controllers and that nobody can check them. That also occurs. There's no restriction. We know in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first verse, Janmadyasya yatonvayaditaratascha-te-śvabhijñā-svarat. Lord Krishna is mentioned as the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of everything, and also completely independent, not dependent on anybody else's permission or support. So even though a person may not explicitly describe themselves as God, they act as if they're God because they don't accept being checked by any other power. Of course, for those people, Krishna describes, or those beings, Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, Mrityu sarvaharascha-ahaṁ, that I am all-devouring death. And those people, they'll have to bow down. They may not want to bow down at lifetime, but they'll have to bow down at death, because no one can conquer death. There was the famous king named Chanut, I think his name is an English king, who supposedly had his throne brought to the edge of the ocean. And he was, the story goes that he was ordering the tide not to come in. So there's two versions of the story. One is that he actually thought that he could order the tide not to come in, but it came in. Others say that really he didn't have any belief that he could order the tide, which would be crazy, but he wanted to show his followers that he wasn't so powerful as God, because by going to the shore of the ocean and ordering the tide to come in, it still came in. So therefore, he was convincing his followers that really he wasn't the Supreme Lord. You follow? So,
yeah.
And there are other, go ahead.
No, I just said yes.
Yeah. And there are other beings in this in the world, in this current world, and in the universe that present themselves as God, either by themselves or by their followers, and or by their actions. They implicitly think they present themselves as God. You know, in the history of the world, there are many people like that. You remember the pharaohs of Egypt?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So did they think they were God, or did they think they were representatives of God?
I don't know statements that point them to accepting the position of being representative of God, though. That part I never heard.
I don't know
Bhagavatam
because
says
I
that,
wasn't
but
there when they were, at least in this that I know of. But according to the historians, the pharaohs actually said that they were God, that they had created, or at least many of them, that they were the creators of the universe and the destroyers of the universe. And one reason they would be embalmed at death and put in a pyramid was because they continued to be God even in death, that their beings would continue, at least according to the modern historians of today. Yeah. And in fact, if you go to the internet, and you can search, and there's a whole list of beings, people on the earth who uh, claim to be God. Not only they claim to be God, but they had lots of followers who believed that they were God as well.
Mm.
So the pharaohs were some of them. There's others like there was a king of Sudan. That's part of Africa. His name was Punarvarman. And according to the histories, they say he said he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, in Africa. Okay. Then you have the Inca emperors. Remember the Incas?
Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Then, and remember Julius Caesar?
Yeah.
So Julius Caesar, apparently, according to the history, didn't declare himself God, but at a certain point, they had a government going on there in ancient Rome, but he declared that he was going to be the emperor from forever, eternally. And then that was his declaration. And that was one of the motives for people to kill him. He was assassinated a month later. And then his successor was Octavian, who became Augustus Caesar. And Augustus Caesar also declared himself God, not the representative of God, but God himself. So it doesn't end in ancient times. People in more modern times also, there are people who have declared themselves God, and their followers accept them as God. Do you know any?
On this church, wait a minute, Sai Baba.
Satya Sai Baba, yeah, Satya Sai Baba.
Sai Baba followers thought he was.
You'll find it's much more common in among the Indian background. People would say, yes, this person is God. But also in the West, there are those who, if you go to the Capitol building, has anybody been to the U.S. Capitol building?
Briefly, I didn't, very briefly.
Apparently, I don't remember this. I think I went when I was a kid. My parents brought me there when I was a kid. You have to see all the wonderful sights, great. But there's a mural on the top of the Capitol building where George Washington is becoming God. He's at least according to what the historians say, they have George Washington entering, being recognized and deified as God. And then also, if you there's a offshoot, or some say offshoot, of Islam called the Nation of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you've heard of it. Malcolm X was a exponent, powerful speaker on behalf of the Nation of Islam for some time. But anyway, the founder of that sect was named W.D. Farad, or say W.D. Farad or W.D. Muhammad.
Mm.
So according to their philosophy, they believed he was Allah,
Oh,
the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah.
that I never heard before.
Yeah, W.D. Farad was God. So that's very interesting.
Wow.
And Elijah Muhammad, who was the successor, was just like Muhammad in Islam was telling about Allah.
Mm-hmm.
Muhammad was his prophet. So similarly, that Elijah Muhammad was the prophet of W.D. Farad. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so this drive to become, or this situation to be recognized as the supreme person is has been going on for millennia. People are mistaking powerful persons, leaders of society, as being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We in ISKCON are very fortunate because we have been given transcendental knowledge to help us differentiate between people with some power, either strength, beauty, wealth, knowledge, fame, renunciation, and the person who has all those qualities in full, Lord Krishna. Ishvara, Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadiradir Govinda, Sarvakarana Karanam. Lord Brahma says elsewhere in the Brahma Samhita that there are many Ishwaras, there are many leaders, like mentioned here, and they all have some power. But the ultimate leader, the controller of all controllers, the Parameshwara, Ishvara Param, Parameshwara, that's Krishna. And he has an eternal, blissful, and spiritual, body full of knowledge. So we're very lucky that we've been given this information, this knowledge from wisdom from Srila Prabhupada and the disciplic succession of Lord Krishna. And as a result of knowing that, if you actually know the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then what's the result of that? Ahaṁ sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam bodha bhava samanvita. If you actually know the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then naturally one will engage in service with attention, great love to that person. All these other leaders, they're requesting and demanding some kind of submission, service. But ultimately, that service is meant for the Supreme Lord. Yanti deva vrata devan, pitrin yanti pitrivrata, bhutani yanti bhuteja, mad bhaktim yajino pimam. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, if you worship demigods mentioned here, like Indra, Candra, etc., then you go to their planets. Even Indra, who's a devotee of Krishna, is a devotee of Krishna. But when his authority was challenged, what happened? By Krishna, this little cowherd boy, he became enraged and he wanted to kill Krishna and Krishna's associates. Everybody's looking for worship, but only Krishna is the supreme, and he's not attached to getting that worship either. There's 6 different opulences of the Supreme Lord, and one of them is renunciation. He's supremely renunciant. He doesn't need any of our service, but it's our opportunity, our great fortune to be able to engage in service through the process of bhakti yoga. Usually in the material world, there's a saying, we don't hear that Srila Prabhupada said this, that power, have you heard this? Power corrupts. You've heard this before?
Yeah.
And then absolute power corrupts absolutely. What do you think of that? What do you think of that?
I've heard power corrupts. I haven't heard absolute power corrupting.
Yeah, that's the corollary. It goes, that's the same. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's what they say in the material. Do you think that's valid?
I don't think so.
Why is that?
Because Krishna is absolute power, and he's not corrupted
That's right.
by that.
That's right. That's right. But how about for other beings like these beings here that we're talking about?
Well, they are vulnerable to being corrupted.
Yes, like Indra, etc.
Mhm.
All the different bodies mentioned here. If they have unchecked power, checked can be made by many things, but in the Vedic system, the power was checked by, the Vedic aphorisms. Those who were supposed to be in leaders, they had to be able to follow the Vedas, and if they didn't, then there was some check on their power. That's why there were Brahmins, and the kings would take direction and advice and counsel from the Brahmanas to make sure that their actions and their policies were following according to the Vedic literature. They couldn't just do whatever they pleased. So there were people who thought they could do whatever they pleased, but usually those were called demons, isn't it? Hiranyakashipu, Vena, etc. Yeah. So there was a set of codes set down in the Vedas for proper action, and they would follow, and under the direction of the Brahmins. And if they got off, then the Brahmins would give them some good counsel, hopefully, so that they could get back on track. So in the material world, it may be true to a certain extent that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely in the material sense, but not for Krishna, because Krishna is transcendental to goodness, passion, and ignorance, those influences that tend to corrupt everyone else except Lord Krishna. You follow?
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, this was an interesting. So does it happen? Does it happen that people get mistake powerful persons as God? Yes. You remember, even we're in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's the history of Ajamil. So Ajamil, he said Narayan just as he was about to expire. And the Yamadutas and the Vishnudutas came and they had a discussion. And the Vishnudutas won. So the Yamadutas went back to Yamaraj and they said, "What's up?" And what was their question? What was their question?
Yamadutas thought that Yamaraj himself was God.
Yes, they thought he was God. I thought you were the supreme. And so Yamaraj had to counsel them. I'm not the supreme. The real supreme personality of Godhead is beyond me. Dharma tu sakshat bhagavat pranita. That's where he says that verse. The supreme personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is beyond. So the Yamadutas were mistaken. And similarly, people in this world, we get misdirected or misguided to think some powerful persons or beings are the supreme. Even in the verse you saw, it's mentioned Lord Vishnu. You see that? Lord Vishnu is not the supreme person, but actually are not so, it says here. They're only a fragment of transcendental potency of the Lord. So even Lord Vishnu. And what did you catch this? How Prabhupada explained that? In the purport?
No.
So this Lord Vishnu mentioned is specifically mentioned like the super soul. Lord Vishnu, the manifestation of Lord Vishnu is also known as yajña, the super soul. So even the super soul is not ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but just a portion of a fragment of the transcendental potency of the Lord. So, in ancient cultures, and sometimes we laugh at ancient cultures because, they worship a mountain as God or as a residence of God. Like there's Mount Fuji or Olympus. Of course, we worship Govardhan Hill, right?
But we still know the Govardhan Hill is the devotee of the Lord. We still know that Govardhan Hill is the devotee of the Lord.
Yes. So there's some parallels, but it's just slightly misdirected. We don't negate that the potency of God is there in mountains, and particularly Govardhan Hill is especially mentioned in the Shastras as a representative, as being, not just a representative being, Lord, an incarnation of Lord Krishna himself. Yeah. So I'll stop there and ask questions, comments. I mean, there's so many different beings mentioned there. They're all very interesting beings. Maybe you didn't know all those. I didn't know all of them. But if you have questions or comments or corrections, interjections, let me know.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for this insightful lecture. You brought up Lord Vishnu as parts, and actually it's in the in the translation itself. So I myself, Brahma, Lord Shiva, then Lord Vishnu. Then he goes on, and towards the end it says that they may appear to be the specific truth in the form of a Lord, but actually they are not so. They are only a fragment of the transcendental potency of the Lord. And so Lord Vishnu, as you were talking about, Lord Vishnu was added to this list.
Yes.
So some people say, yeah, he's an expansion of the Lord. So he doesn't have the same potency as Krishna then.
That's right.
According to what they're saying.
So sometimes, like in the some dictionaries or encyclopedias, they'll say Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu. But it's actually the other way around.
Yeah.
Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and all the others are expansions of Krishna. Ishvara Param Krishna, we've said, or Ekala Ishwar Krishna Ashabhrita. Lord Chaitanya said similar to that. There's one supreme controller, Ekala Ishwar Krishna, that's Krishna, and Ashabhrita. Everybody else is servant. So even the first expansion from Lord Krishna, Balaram, he takes the position of being the servant of Krishna in his many Sankarshan forms, his couch, etc.
Yeah.
So this is Lord Brahma is clarifying for Narad Muni all these things.
Actually, as we were talking, I was also thinking that when we described in the Shastra that Krishna having 64 qualities, and Vishnu have 60.
Yes, good point.
That's also another point. Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
At the same level. That's true.
It's got 94% of those qualities. Krishna is only Krishna. That's all those qualities in full more than anybody else. Asamordha. Sama means equal. Asama, not equal. Mordha. No one is equal to or better. Urdhva means bigger, better than him. Nice. And all these beings that we read about, they all have a portion of his qualities, a portion, and that becomes attractive to beings otherwise in this world, but they can never match Krishna. So we're very fortunate that Srila Prabhupada has given us this clear understanding of this, because we could easily also become misguided and worship someone who's not the Supreme Lord. So Srila Prabhupada was going to, it was in Paris, and they had a statue of Napoleon in France. And Srila Prabhupada said, so where is he now? Where is he now? So you worship Napoleon, you can go to where Napoleon is. Yeah, Napoleon. Yeah. Where is George Washington now? Where is Jawaharlal Nehru now? You go to, you worship, whoever you worship, you'll go to them.
Mm.
I was other comments or questions. I had a lot of questions about this because there are all these different beings mentioned.
Yeah. So what is it? Any questions you want
I
to
can
ask?
give you questions. Yeah, Mother Anasuya.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisance and for
Yeah.
Prabhupada. This was a very insightful class. Definitely a class that has to be heard again and again, and read this verse again and again. Every line is like information and instructions, and I mean, really mind-blowing. Prabhu, when you're speaking about Pharaoh, I remember that, Pharaoh was considered God, like they had that consciousness that they were God. And when you were speaking about Pharaoh, I remember something that because the pharaohs thought that they were God, is that why the pyramids in Egypt has an outline of a pharaoh, because they think that they are gods? Is that what it is?
Well,
I
you're
was just
talking about the
curious.
Sphinx. The Sphinx. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yes.
I don't know about the Sphinx, but the pyramids were, just those triangular kind of things where they
Yes.
interred the bodies of the pharaohs after they, according to the history, which, history is not necessarily 100% accurate necessarily, but that's what they say because
Right.
they had the idea that they were actually God. So then how do you know that there's several pharaohs? So which of the pharaohs is God? So then how do you figure that one out? I don't know. Yeah, that's hard to figure
I
out.
know.
There was a
Exactly. I was
there
just,
there's a
yes.
famous case in psychiatry where in Ypsilanti, Michigan,
Mm.
there's a big psychiatric hospital. I know how sometimes people, when they're deluded, they have delusions of grandeur. So sometimes
Mhm.
people will think, when they're got a little bit crazy, that they're Jesus Christ. So in this one hospital, they had three different patients who all were very convinced that they were Jesus Christ. So
Mm.
it's kind of comical because how do they interact with each other when Jesus Christ 1 met Jesus Christ 2, met Jesus. So how did the different pharaohs understand themselves? I don't know those details, but it's certainly odd how people
I,
can understand that. Yeah.
Probably the same soul could keep reincarnating as different pharaohs. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah. I mean, that's
guessing.
something like in the Dalai Lama. In Tibetan
Yeah,
Buddhism is something like that. Yeah, and
they
there's
think
some
that way about it.
views like that, but there's very little clear conception of God, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we are so fortunate that Srila Prabhupada, right off the bat, gives a very clear, concise understanding of God.
Yeah.
And unless you have a clear understanding of God, then you can easily be misled or cheated. Just like if you go to a store and you want to buy a precious gem, if you don't know something about the precious gems and how understanding them, their qualities, their symptoms, then you can be cheated easily,
Mm.
which happens.
Yeah. I have one question in this translation that's not sitting well in my mind. Because the different beings are being described: Rakṣas, Uragas, great sages, demons, atheists, the great spacemen, and then it says, as well as the dead bodies. They
Yes.
put dead bodies in there, and then but they were talking about. Let me just see this. I'm surprised it was added. Of all the
Yeah,
things.
the Sanskrit word there is preta,
Okay.
preta. So,
Mm.
in the Sanskrit, excuse me, in the Vedic worldview, there's all these different beings, higher and lower planets, and also in this level. And
Yeah.
there's also different kind of spirits, bhutas, and bhuta is a general name for ghosts, but there's all kinds of different kinds of ghosts. Like here, it's mentioned jinn,
Mm-hmm.
or we say in the West we say genie, and
Yeah.
genies are shapeshifters.
Yeah.
Shapeshifters means they can take different
Forms. Mm.
forms. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the preta is a special, according to what I read. This is not,
Mhm.
and I searched in Veda base for preta, and because how it's used in various slokas in the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So preta is often used to indicate the kind of ghost that's there right at the time when the body is dead, has just died.
Oh.
So before any funeral rites have occurred, or if funeral rites occur at all, the ghost after the death of the person, but before funeral rites have been accomplished, that's a preta, according to what I've read in this. So a certain kind of, so it's associated with the dead body, but it's not necessarily the dead body itself.
Yeah.
So we know that in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, there were some people who were worshiping a tree. Remember this? And because there was a powerful ghost living in the tree, so he had somebody read Srimad Bhagavatam under the tree for so many days, and finally, the ghost left, and like that. So people, I mean, there's these various beings, and there's especially the leaders of those beings are going on, and the question could be, are these various beings human? There's 400,000 species of human life, or are they some other? What would you say?
Some of them are included in the human. I know the ghosts are, for sure. The ghosts are, yeah.
So then you come to the question of, what is a species according to the Vedas? Because a species within modern science is when two, if they're animals, they procreate and they have a fertile offspring. So like a donkey and a horse are two different species, because when a donkey and a horse mate, the result is a mule, but a mule can't have offspring. So they're two, you follow?
Yeah.
So is that the definition of a species in Vedic times? What do you think?
I'm not sure. I just haven't define species the way if I was hearing it the first time, the way you define species. So I haven't actually thought through that.
Okay. So I searched some database for this under human species, and I got some letters and conversations of Srila Prabhupada address that point. I can read it if you like.
Yeah, that would be nice if you can.
Regarding your question, whether a person who is Chinese, Indian, etc., are they different species of life? Yes. So far the body is concerned, they are different. Your question, whether a woman in each one of the species another species? No. The species, both men and women of the same type. Like that. So the different that's one the different nationalities, kind of, or races, we'd say in modern parlance. They're according to Vedic system, they're apparently different species according to the 400,000 species. So, like the verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Kirata, Hurandra, Pulinda, Pulkasha, Abhira, Shumba, Yavanak. Those are all, from a Vedic point of view, where they'd say different species. I have some couple other quotes here. The demigods are included within the species of human life. This is a letter to Rupanuga in March 7th, 1970. The demigods are included in human species, okay? And
in the 400,000 then. 400,000.
Yeah. So then Upendra asked Srila Prabhupada in 1971, how do you make the species? Krishna mentions many types of higher beings in Bhagavad Gita, such as demigods and those who dwell on higher planets. We have information that there are 8,400,000 species of life. Out of these, 400,000 species are human. Of these 400,000, how many species do we find in our experience? Not many, probably less than 1,000. So we must conclude that there are hundreds of thousands of higher and lower types of human forms. But this does not mean that one body evolves into another. Okay. And so don't bother about those species. There are different forms. Just like Europe, the form is different from Africa or India. There's different forms. You may call it species according to Darwin, but we don't accept Darwin's theory. So we don't speak of species, but we call it form. Sarva yoneshu kauntaya sambhavanti murtaya. Murti here means form. So there are 400,000 different forms of human being. You take it as species or form, that is up to you. But in the Shastra, it is said
So form
murti, just like an elephantism has a certain murti. Follow?
this form, yeah. Yeah.
So these
Yeah.
different beings here,
See,
like the
it's
yakshas,
interesting you
rakshas,
brought it up. I'm
charanas,
sorry.
vidyādharas, they're all different forms. Although we know that some demigods, right, they procreated with humans, isn't it?
Yeah, it's even the
The
Bible
sun god had a
Old
child
Testament.
with Kunti named Karna. So even though,
Yeah.
according to the Vedic system, they're different murtis or different species, still they had procreations. They were able to procreate, and the offspring was fertile. So it doesn't correspond with the scientific idea of species. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a kind of complicated topic here. So I was just even thinking that the humans on this planet, if strip away the flesh and look at the skeleton, it's pretty much the same,
Yes.
regardless of race. It's the
Yes.
same. So the base bone structure by which these humans are made is one on this earth, as opposed to those who are, we call them aliens. They may have, rather than 5 fingers, they may have 3 fingers. There's some that are like
Some
that.
of the people that are mentioned in this verse, yeah. Some of the beings mentioned in this verse, yeah.
Anyway.
So anyway, that's how Prabhupada answered it in a few places.
Okay.
I thought that was interesting. So all these different beings were different species.
Yeah.
Or the Vedic species, not
thank you for explaining this
scientific.
dead bodies one, because what threw me off when I saw as well as the dead bodies, and then towards the end, I mean, it says here that, in other words, anything and everything which is exceptionally possessed of power, and I immediately said, a dead body is possessed of power. So,
Yes.
so when you explain, okay, all right, so we're talking about ghosts then. Yeah, they do.
I had the same reaction when I read it too. So
Yeah.
that's why I had to do a little investigation.
Yeah. So some are shapeshifters, some of those. Actually, some of them are raiding this planet right now. In one particular show that people don't realize that it goes that can shift into different. It's called AGT, America's Got Talent, and
Oh, okay.
they're showing up, and they go from one body type to another body type, and people are just blown away, blown away by it.
Yeah, sure.
But some of those beings are doing that now, just having fun.
Yeah, we know that, or at least that Bhima, his first wife was Hidimbi, and she was ordinarily a Rakshasi, but she was able to change her shape to become a beautiful woman in order to attract Bhim. So apparently the Rakshasis can do that. They have that ability as well. But then when their son was born, his name was Gatokach. He was a mixture of human and Rakshasa because he looked like he had these big teeth and all that kind of stuff that Rakshasas.
Very powerful.
So when there's
it's an endless. Thank you very much. Any final comments, buddies? You could just go on. If not, then thank you, Prabhu, very much for coming on this morning to give us wonderful, wonderful lecture. And everybody, this is towards the end of the week, so have a nice weekend coming up.
Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasinudebhaccha pitṭhāṇāṁ pāvanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Thank you again and thank you,
Thank
devotees.
you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Jai.